Hey, what's going on, everyone? Ryan Dyrud here from Sportsnaut.com, ready to preview this epic Lions-Niners game in Santa Clara. It is going to be a fantastic NFC matchup, and to join me to break it all down is one of the best in the business, good friend of mine now. We've done shows together. How many have we done now? Like 8 or something like that, dating 3 years ago or
Something,
so.
yeah. Yeah.
He's awesome, has a great following on YouTube. Make sure to check out Last Second Sports. You can see the awesome sign behind him all lit up and everything. He's JNA underscore LLS, excuse me, on Twitter if you want to give him a follow any Niners fans out there watching. But Jesse, what's up, man? Thanks for joining me and breaking this game down with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Anytime you reach out, I'm ready to roll, man. So it was interesting. I didn't expect you to reach out. It's normally 49ers and Rams content together, but this week a little bit different. I like it.
Yeah, I know. It's always, yeah, when the Rams Niners play, I still had to rep the LA gear just because that's what you're used to seeing. So
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
still made sure to throw that on. But yeah, always a pleasure and always so fun chatting with you. So let's just start with backtracking a little bit, get the win. It was a scary one, I'm sure, for Niners Nation, but got the win against the Packers. Brock Purdy, iffy kind of throughout the game, but hey, when it mattered most, when the lights were the brightest, drove him down and won. Just what's your kind of summation of that game, and how confident did that performance make you feel moving forward?
Yeah, I think anytime you have a young quarterback, you're looking to kind of gather feathers in the proverbial cap. And for him, that was one. He hadn't had a come from behind victory this year, and the 49ers haven't really been in a scenario too often to have to come from behind. The one real scenario that he had in Cleveland, he had kind of led them there and put them into field goal position. They missed the field goal. Then the next couple weeks, he had a couple other opportunities through picks in those moments. So for him to do that in the biggest game of the year gives me a lot of confidence that the 49ers can do what they need to do going forward. And I think really for this team, and more so Kyle Shanahan, let's be frank, Kyle Shanahan has been known to give up leads. He
Mhm.
is not known to come back when they need it in these games. That was with Jimmy Garoppolo or Matt Ryan, any of these guys. So for him, I think he needed that as well. And I felt like this team coming together the way that they did, inclement weather. You had a Packers team who was essentially coming into their fourth playoff game because they had to win their last couple just to
Mhm.
get into the playoffs. So their intensity was high. 49ers were coming off of a bye, which, normally that's good. I think for them, it was probably better to get that rest, but it can lead to a little bit of rust. And I think we saw that early. So this week, weather's good. You've gotten your feet wet into the playoffs. You've overcome some past demons in the Shanahan era. I think this team's ready to roll, man.
Yeah, they get their first, if I'm not mistaken, come from behind victory. What was it? He's 1-32 now. Is that what it is?
Something like that. Yeah, when he's trailing by at least 5 points. There's like
Yeah.
four different fourth quarter stats. There's one, depending on what the score was, but either way, man, they got
Hey,
it done. And I thought it was going to happen. I really felt confident the whole time up until the Aaron Jones run. Once that run broke for about 55, I said, "Oh man, here we go. This is how it ends." So I'm glad that the 49ers are still kicking.
yeah, no, absolutely, and they got it done. And hey, sometimes you just need that one, and then the proverbial snowball starts rolling. Um, so one more thing on that game, and then we'll move forward and looking ahead. What was your? I'll be honest. Like on all shows I've talked on throughout the week, I've been fairly harsh on Kyle Shanahan. And for me, it was you have this rainy game. You have Brock Purdy, who I think has played very well for this organization since being called up, but it's a big time playoff game. And you have arguably the best player in football in Christian McCaffrey. And going into 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, McCaffrey had like 11 carries to Purdy's 27 pass attempts. Obviously, they got it done, so that wasn't really the conversation. So I was probably being a little overcritical. But your thoughts, being with the team, covering the team, seeing the fan base, just kind of been what's your summation of Kyle Shanahan, maybe this whole season, but specifically that game and kind of his play calling?
Well, I think when we talk about teams, not being critical in wins is the easy thing to do, but that doesn't mean that problems weren't there. I said on Sunday, and I feel this way now 4 days later, or excuse me, Saturday when they played, I said in the post game, and I feel this way 4 or 5 days later that the 49ers overcame Kyle Shanahan in that game.
Mhm.
That's the way that I believe it. The reason is because it was clear that there was a game plan set for Deebo Samuel to be a huge part of that game. He went down early. And Shanahan, I think, is great of a coach as he is, as great of a game planner as he is, as great as a play designer as he is. Sometimes I think there's more to be desired when it comes to his actual play calling. And whenever he's throwing a curveball, it seems like he can never adjust. And I felt like this game was exactly that. I was frustrated with the way that the end of the first half was handled. I understand you don't want to give Green Bay any time to go score, but at the same time, you're trying to win a game, and a touchdown in that situation, and then you get the ball coming out of half would have been clutch. They
Mhm.
didn't really go for the touchdown. They settled for the field goal, which they eventually missed. And then the cherry on top, Ryan, was the way that they started the second half.
Mhm.
They have Jawan Jennings in the backfield, lined up as a running back.
Mhm.
4.7 speed, has never taken a handoff in this offense, and he runs the ball as if he was Deebo Samuel. Kyle Shanahan later said that he had a Ron Burgundy moment. A Ron Burgundy moment. That was your explanation. Would you have been willing to say you had a Ron Burgundy moment if you had lost that game? Would you
Mhm.
have been that jovial over a loss? I don't think so. So
Yeah.
to me, that was inexcusable. Luckily, they won, and a lot of people are unwilling to criticize when wins happen. But if you don't have those conversations, what ends up happening is when the losses come, you're like, where did this come from? Nobody was talking about this. Well, we were talking about it, but nobody wanted to hear because you want all roses and sunshine.
Yeah. That's what I love about your coverage. You're always, keep it real on both sides. You're not overly pessimistic, but not overly optimistic. You keep it kind of in the middle of the lane, which is great. So, um, you know, looking kind of forward to this game, obviously, but I want to talk about the fan base. You obviously, know the fan base in terms of, your channel, people that interact with you, on social media. I just want to catch the vibe of Niner Nation. Like, does it feel like this is the Niners' year? Is everyone very optimistic? Is there still a lot of reservations about what this team looks like and how good they are, or how maybe not quite as good they are? So just what's the vibe of the fan base towards this team?
I feel like this fan base has been very confident all year. I feel like this last game, they know that they got away with one,
Mhm.
but they also know that that might have been the one that is really in the way from getting number 6. I think when you look at the Shanahan era and how close they have been knocking on the door, getting to a Super Bowl, having a lead, blowing the lead, realizing that really the one thing holding them back has been the quarterback position more so than anything. Now, with Brock Purdy entering the fold, everybody's confident in Brock Purdy. I am kind of a pessimist when it comes to him, but not saying that he's not good, because he is very good.
Mhm.
I don't know that he's the franchise guy, meaning when you have to pay him a ton of money, I'm not sure that he's going to be able to carry a team. But one thing I do know is he is a very good quarterback.
Mhm.
With this team around him, he executes at the highest level we've seen anybody do it in this offense. And he is enough right now to win a Super Bowl. And right now is what 49er fans care about. That's what they should care about. And he can definitely deliver and get it done. So I think this team is very, very confident. Or excuse
Yeah.
me, this fan base is very confident in the team.
Yeah. I mean, as they should be. It's the best roster in football. We've talked about before. One of the best records in football. And, they're now having a date with a very excited fan base as well in Detroit that is they're not hungry for 6. They're hungry for 1 after their
Yes.
1957 NFL championship before the Super Bowl era. But they finally got their palate wet a little bit, beating the Rams, and then, going on and beating Tampa Bay, and now they get to face your Niners. So when you look at this Detroit team,
Mhm.
and don't have to get overly critical, but when you look at this Detroit team, what about them worries you facing the Niners, whether it's offensively or defensively? Like, what matchups are you like, okay, this is where the Niners could run into little bit of trouble?
Yeah, I think that run game is for real. They've got 2 very good running backs. They have a good offensive line. Although Jonah Jackson is likely not going to play, I think that does hurt them. But even then, they still have Ragnow in the middle. They have Decker on one side. They have Sewell on the other. This team has a good old line. And then these running backs, Gibbs, so explosive.
Mhm.
You get the ball in his hands. I mean, he's a difference maker. Montgomery's kind of your run between the tackles guy, but he's always moving forward. He's a tough tackle. So that is worrisome. The 49ers, if you look at them on paper, their run defense is very good. but I think there are a lot of things that factor into that. One, the 49ers are usually playing from ahead, and most of the teams they've played haven't really been willing, even when the games are close, to continue to run the ball. Minnesota, a great example of this. I think they had some success early. They actually were winning that game, but were not running the ball. When you look at teams that have consistently been willing to run the ball in the 49ers, they've been able to do that, not with ease, but with less resistance than you would think when you look at the numbers. So I think that the Lions will be able to run the ball. And then I think for the 49ers, when they're on offense, there's a major glaring weakness on this offense. And it's the right tackle, Colton McKivitz. Aiden Hutchinson lines up over the right tackle most of the time. That is a position where he's going to eat. So now the question becomes, do you take the short passing game and utilize that as kind of an extension of the run game and try to neutralize Hutchinson? Do you keep Kittle in to block? What is the game plan for the San Francisco 49ers? I'm curious to see, but that right there can wreck a game. You know, you have somebody as good as Hutchinson going against somebody as bad as McKivitz. That could be a game wrecker if you don't handle it in the proper way. I'm sure Shanahan will have a great game plan for it, but I'm curious to see exactly what that game plan is.
Yeah, recipe for disaster. I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I was going to ask next. But on the opposite side, talk to me about the Niners pass rush. Obviously, Joey Bosa and Chase Young, and talk to me a little bit about Steve Wilks and his philosophy. Because you look at last week against the Packers, I think Bosa had something like 6 pressures, but as a unit, 0 sacks on Jordan Love. And everyone out there knows, including I'm assuming Steve Wilks, that hey, you put pressure on Jared Goff, he's not very good. Like you get pressure on him, he's not a very good quarterback. He's going to force turnovers. And so that's the recipe to win and beat that team. So just talk about the Niners pass rush, maybe what was lacking last week and what they can do to be better this week against a better offensive line in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Bosa hasn't had the production when it comes to his sacks, but he does get a ton of pressures. And Goff, if you watch him play, it's not just that pressure rattles him. Anytime there's any semblance of pressure, he crumbles. He literally will just go to the ground and be like, all right, I'll take the sack. So a lot of those would be sacks from maybe last week with Love, who's more mobile and can get away. You're going to see Goff go down in those scenarios. So I like the matchup overall. The 49ers are built one way, and that is send 4. You don't want to blitz a ton. You send 4. You try to get home with 4. And if you can do that, you're going to protect the back end and make things a little bit easier. That's still the philosophy. Wilks likes to do things a little bit different, but he has acquiesced to this team and what they've wanted. So much so that he used to call plays from the booth. He's come down to the sideline because that's what the team wanted. He has acclimated to the team's approach, which is softer coverage. Don't give up the big plays. Try to get home with 4. Keep everything in front of you. And that's pretty much what they've done. Now, one change that I have seen him make that I do like a lot, although this might have been a Shanahan thing as well from what we've heard, is he's allowing Ward, who's clearly the best corner on the 49ers, Tarvarius Ward, to travel with number 1 receivers more so than I've ever seen in the past. So maybe that's something they do this week. I'll be curious to see. But the philosophy is always the same. Try to get home with 4. I believe that they can, even against a good offensive line, just because Goff will walk into sacks the way that he always does.
Yeah, and not that this is a Rams show, but any Rams fans knows as the Rams and Jared Goff would face the Niners twice a year, it was usually a rough outing. I think he lost his last 4 starts against the Niners. So everyone's talking about this Lions offense, rightfully so, but sometimes history tells you it doesn't match up well against this Niners team, and it's always a recipe for not doing well there. So I like the point you bring up about Charvarius Ward and falling number 1. Amon-Ra St. Brown is as good as they get in this league. How much does he concern you, and do you think Ward will follow him around throughout this game?
Yeah, I'm interested to see if he does. Amon-Ra St. Brown operates from everywhere. And a lot of time that means from the slot. Interestingly enough, I actually think the better matchup for Amon-Ra St. Brown is our nickel corner. So if he lines up in the slot, that might be the better option, because the way that I view Deommodore Lenoir, everything that you can say about Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is smaller stature, extremely physical, tough at the catch point, willing to hit you and take hits, great route runner. I mean, he can do it all. Deommodore Lenoir is basically that in a defensive back body. He'll hit you hard, way harder than he should for as small as he is.
Yeah.
He's got great coverage skills, very physical, tough at the catch point. So if anybody can match Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I don't know that anybody can stop him, but if anybody can kind of stay in his hip pocket and make things tough on him, I actually think it's Deommodore Lenoir. So if he wants to line up in the slot and take on the nickel, I think that does the 49ers favors. I don't know that Amon-Ra St. Brown Ward is a matchup that favors the 49ers. In fact, I don't think that it does at all. The way that I view Ward is he's very, very good with the taller, bigger receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, even the guys from LA, Puka and Cup, those guys are just quick and shifty. It's very hard to guard them. And I just don't think that that is a matchup that favors him. So I would be shocked if he follows, but that is something that he has done more and more this year.
Yeah, interesting. And this is completely off the top of my head, so I could be wrong, but Lenoir's from Oregon, right?
Yes. Yeah. 5th round pick.
So I'm curious. I'm trying to think of their years off the top of my head, but obviously Amon-Ra is a USC guy, and there could have been some matchups there in college. Maybe there's some little knowing of each other, some gamesmanship there could be there. 2 more for you, Jesse, and I'll get you out of here. Got to ask about Debo. Obviously, I think I saw as of today, which is Thursday, he practiced in limited capacity. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your thoughts on his injury? Obviously, if he's practicing at all, I think he'll give it a shot, but obviously he's a huge deal to this offense. The numbers don't lie when he's in the lineup. This is one of the best 49ers team in all of football. When he's not, it's a drastically different team, which we saw against the Packers. So your thoughts on Debo, his health, and how big of an impact he will or won't have?
Yeah, that was a big concern. I mean, him going out of the game, there was an obvious difference right away. The tone was completely different, and he is a tone setter. I mean, we talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown and yak and breaking tackles and being tough. Debo is all of those things. So Debo Samuel will be very important in this game. I don't know how effective he will be with that shoulder. Now, this is a shoulder that he hurt earlier in the year. He missed multiple games with. At that time, it was a hairline fracture. This time, there is no fracture, but it is pain stemming, I would imagine, from the original injury. Him being in a limited capacity in practice, I imagine he's going to play. The question now becomes, is he a decoy? Can he take a hit? Can he play that physical brand that he always plays? Or is it one of those things where he comes in, he's there for a play or two, he takes a big hit and he's out again? I think the 49ers have to prepare for all scenarios. Hopefully Shanahan hasn't built a game plan primarily around him the way he did last week in case he's not available. So Debo Samuel, we all know, great player when he's on. Hopefully he can make it through, but it does look like at the very least he will suit up and take the field snap one. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, be shocked not to see him out there. Either way, Christian McCaffrey should have 25 plus touches, whether it's on the ground or through the air, in my opinion. All right, last one for you, and I want to bring it back to Kyle Shanahan, and I don't want to end here on any negativity. We'll get your estimate or your guess of the game right after this. But what are we looking at if and I don't want to put negativity out there, but if the Niners end up falling in this game and 3 straight, NFC Championship appearance, 1 Super Bowl appearance, great rosters. Quarterback obviously is a different discussion, but that's a whole other podcast we could talk about. What's the temperature on Kyle Shanahan? And now I'm not saying he's on the hot seat, going to be fired, because I think we're far from that, but we're starting to get to that territory, in my opinion, of like Andy Reid Philadelphia days, where great coach, great offensive mind, great evaluator talent. He built great coaching staffs that always got plucked and became head coaches, but he could never win the big game in Philly. They ended up moving on, and then he goes in his second stint in KC, and we all know what happened out there. Are we getting to that point with Kyle if he loses this game, or is it still kind of, it's all praise, top 5 coach like everyone says?
Yeah, man. I think it depends on who you ask. For me, they've got to get over the hump this year. There's no excuses. You can't blame your past situations on Jimmy Garoppolo the way that they have, whether outwardly or not. You traded 3 first-round picks to go get Trey Lance and attempt to replace Jimmy Garoppolo. That tells you all you need to know. They believe their problems were at the quarterback position. Now, fast forward, obviously Trey Lance is not the one that ends up replacing him full-time, but it is Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is a guy, before he took a snap at all this year, you called the real deal and your franchise quarterback. You moved on from Trey Lance. You've treated him as such, which is the right thing to do. However, if you don't get over the hump, who's pointing the finger at Brock Purdy? I'm certainly not. He's in year 2. What do you expect from him? You expected a guy in year 2, essentially his first full year starting, to come out, put this team on his right arm and go win you a Super Bowl. seems kind of crazy. Now, maybe that ends up happening and everything is great, but if it doesn't happen, I think everybody has to point the finger at Kyle. You can't then go back to the quarterback, be like, well, the quarterback. No, you've had your chance. You said he was great. You yourself have said you've had the best team in football every time you've lost in the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl. And the only thing you were missing is a quarterback. So what is the excuse if you don't get it done this time? No, Kyle Shanahan is not going anywhere. He's not going to get fired by any means. But I think fans would be very, very frustrated if they don't come away with 6 this year.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's no excuses at this point, even with some of the, quarterback conversation, if you will. So, but me and you can talk more about that because I always love that conversation, especially with the McVay Shanahan dynamic that we always have. But get you out of here on this, Jesse. What's your prediction for this one? Are the Niners in the Super Bowl in Vegas, which I will be at? I know you'll be at this game in Santa Clara, so pumped for you. What's your prediction? They walking out with the dub?
Yeah, I think so. When I look at Detroit, they're just not the complete team that can really put the 49ers on their heels and get it done. I think offensively, very, very good. There's some things to be desired on special teams for them, and their defense can be had in the passing game. Good run defense. However, they kind of sell out to stop the run. It's not like they're just winning with 7 in the box and in a good run defense in that manner. It's like they sell out to stop the run, and then they gamble a lot on defense and try to make big plays themselves. And in doing so, they give up big plays in the pass game. I think Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, those guys are going to have very, very big games. I don't see how Brandon Ayuk gets stopped on those deep digs at all. Him and Purdy, I think, are going to have a fantastic day. And the 49ers win this one 31-23.
Love it. Well, there you go. Always good stuff from my man, Jessie Naylor. Thanks, brother, so much for stopping by. Make sure to check out his YouTube channel, Last Second Sports. They do phenomenal work and phenomenal Niners coverage for your Niners fan. And at JNA_LSS on Twitter. Give it a follow, say what up. He's one of the nicest guys I know, and he's like related to Tim Tebow. So you got to say hi to him for that. So, but brother, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.